Call to order the January 6, 2011 meeting of the Ascension Parish Council. Would everyone stand for the invocation by Councilman George Valentine and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance by Major Don Bailey.
Our Heavenly Father, Lord, we come to you tonight, Father, humble, Lord, before you, Lord, as we thank you for your gracious and your grace, Lord, and the fact that you sent your Son, Lord. Father, as we look into this new year, Lord, we ask that blessings on all of our families, on the council, and especially the administration, and of course our workers, Father, in the parish as we start a new year, Father, hoping that each person examines his heart and makes sure that, Lord, that their life shines for you. Father, we ask blessings on this meeting tonight. We ask wisdom. We ask that you, as always, Father, bless our troops that are abroad and here at home. And we ask all these things in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Madam Secretary. All present except Councilman Bell. We're moving to the public comment period. Anyone wishing to speak on any item on the agenda, please sign in with the Secretary and you'll be given time to speak. We have one speaker on item number 4. Ms. Goff.
Good evening, Councilmen, citizens of Ascension Parish. We just stood together and pledged allegiance to the flag and the republic for which it stands, with liberty and justice for all. Are these empty words? Do they mean nothing? Patrick Henry, one of the founding fathers, expressed the true spirit of every American best. Is life so dear, or peace so sweet, as to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery? Forbid it, God Almighty. I know not what course others may take, but as for me, give me liberty or give me death. These are the words spoken before the American Revolution. Opportunity for the public to comment in these public meetings is a freedom protected by our Constitution at the state and federal levels. It is the duty of every citizen to exercise these freedoms. Veterans have fought and died to protect and preserve our liberties. The fact that a veteran was removed from the chambers at your last meeting by Chairman Bell was unnecessary and distressing. It is a reflection of the attitude of the chairman, but also reflects poorly on the council as a whole. The First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Those who attend these meetings can clearly see the public is not out of control. Those who watch at home should be aware that what they see and hear is controlled by this administration. The fact that you do not like what a speaker says does not give you or anyone the authority to silence that speaker or remove them from the room. Your rules should not be used to muzzle citizens or intimidate the people. Remember, your powers come from the people. This is the people's government. This is still America, and it will continue to be the land of the free and the home of the brave, as long as the freedoms we have are cherished and preserved by us all. Thank you.
We're moving our presentations. We have a presentation from Mr. Troy Landry that he couldn't make it here tonight, and he apologizes. He'll be back at a later time. We have a certificate of recognition for Major Don Bailey, Junior ROTC Air Force. Mr. President.
Seems like we see this gentleman on a regular basis. He's always being honored for something that he does for his community and his country, and you know, he's a great citizen of Ascension Parish, and certainly one of the great educators that we've had here. And you know, he's going to continue getting these accolades because of the job that he does, and he's just a good gentleman and a good friend and a great educator. But anyway, certificate of recognition. This certificate is hereby awarded to U.S. Armed Air Force. Trying to get you an arm. Retired Donald R. Bailey. The Parish of Ascension is proud to present this certificate of recognition to Major Don Bailey for recently being honored as the 2010 Air Force GROTC Outstanding Instructor. Major Bailey was selected for this award over more than 2,000 instructors. This past year, he also garnered the coveted Louisiana High School Teacher of the Year Award. Major Bailey of Donaldsonville High School Air Force Junior ROTC, Detachment LA 223, was chosen from 21 regional finalists as the outstanding educator. We join Council Chairman Pat Bell, the entire Parish Council, in expressing our deepest gratitude for all you do and have done to make a positive impact on the youth of Ascension Parish. Mr. Bailey, thank you so much.
Real short and sweet. First of all, thank you. It seems like every time I'm recognized for something in the parish, you guys never forget and recognize me as well. But the one thing I want to say about this is a brand new award. They always recognize outstanding instructors, and they always have. But normally there's about 300 of them. And that was the end of it. This year, though, they started something new, and after the selection for the 300 out of 2,000, this is worldwide, because we have Air Force JROTC units around the world in DOD schools. So they decided this year to take those 300 and meet another board, and out of that they would select one officer and one NCO to be the best of the best. And naturally that's me, but I mean, they selected me, but what it says more than that is that I'm proud that it is me because I'm here. I'm in Donaldsonville. I'm at the Donaldsonville High School, so I represent my kids, my cadets in the school, Donaldsonville and Ascension Parish. That's really what I'm happy for. So that wall that goes up for the first time, you know, I'm the first annual, and it's going to go up on a wall at headquarters at Maxwell Air Force Base in Montgomery, Alabama. And I'm not concerned about it being me. As if you've read the article already, you know I said my I Love Me wall is full. Okay? I don't need any more awards, but what it does do, it reflects on all of us. It reflects on the school and our parish, and that's really what I want. It's to get all the accolades that we need, because we do deserve them. We have a great bunch of cadets and students at Donaldsonville High School, and they do not get enough recognition, so I do this for them. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We'll move right into item number 6, Parish President's Report, appointment to the Planning and Zoning Review Board.
Yes, Miss Pat Piku passed away. She was on, this is actually a spot that she had, and this is the Appeals Board. And I'd like to nominate Mr. Brian Aguilar. He lives in Ascension Parish. He's an engineer, lives on Maplewood Drive in Prairieville.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by
Second.
Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Dennis Cullen. Any discussion? Any opposition? Is confirmed.
Thank you. Next, I'd like to recommend Ms. Cinnamon Gauche, however you want to say it, Gauche. But
Motion.
We have a motion by Mr. Adrian Thompson, second by Mr. Todd Lambert for the appointment of Cinnamon
The council secretary, get that
Council
finished.
Secretary.
And I also like to recognize Ms. Suzanne Patterson, who's still here, and I think our last day is the 14th of January. And I want to, again, thank her for her years of service and a job well done, and hopefully she enjoys her retirement.
Any discussion on Cinnamon? Any opposition? It's confirmed.
The other thing, I don't know if you were going to do this, but I'd like to ask you to take a moment of silence for Mr. Charles Pasqua, who recently passed away and was a longtime leader in Ascension Parish, mayor of Gonzales, and also head of the Municipal Association.
On behalf of the council, we ask everybody to bow their heads for a short moment. Thank you. Mr. Pasquale was a good man in the community for a lot of years.
Thank you, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll move to agenda item number 7, consent agenda.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert, second by Mr. Chris Lord. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Committee report, we move into agenda item number 8, Transportation Committee recommendation. Mr. Chairman Dempsey Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A is a resolution for the Parish of Ascension to accept responsibility of costs associated with LA Highway 42 sewer improvement project.
Motion.
We have a motion by Councilman Chris Lord,
Second.
second by Councilman Dennis Cullen. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries.
B is the corrections to the contract renewals for 2011 to read as follows. Buchhorn Hart Incorporated Engineer Design Services, $150,000. We'll move on these individuals.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilman Kent Shake Snyder, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Motion passes.
Next is SJB Group Surveying and Associated Services, $100,000.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Councilman Todd Lambert,
Second.
second by Councilman Dennis Cullen. Any discussion? Motion passes.
End of my report, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Next thing, we'll move into Strategic Planning Committee recommendations. Vice Chairman George Valentine was at the last meeting. Chairman Kent Shake Snyder was out in the hospital. Which one of you guys want to take?
Go ahead.
Kent?
Go ahead, Joe.
Kent, you
First,
got it?
first, let me, I was remiss absolutely in recognizing the fact that Kent's back with us, and we're glad that he was here. Don't do the mistake like I did and almost hit him on the back, welcoming him back. But he's a little stiff-necked, but we're glad he came through his surgery and the Lord took care of him, so we appreciate that. Strategic planning meeting, we had several items. One of them was a resolution to authorize and approve the issuance of a sales and delivery of a note to not to exceed $1,500,000 revenue bonds in one or more series for the Fire Protection Board number 1, District number 1, and the Parish of Ascension. Now that is for the District 1 to buy 5 fire engines, new ones. It was a extensive discussion about it, very good explanation. I'll apologize. There were some very good packets that they gave explaining everything about the situation, and some of you may have it, but it was very good put together by the fire department. And
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Councilman Benny Johnson, second by Councilman Todd Lambert. Do we have someone that wants to speak on that? Or do we need it?
anybody needs an
Council?
explanation, we got somebody out there. If we don't,
I think Gene's here to give an explanation.
Gene? Okay, Mr. Ryan?
Mr. Jim Ryan, bond consultant.
Chairman Valentine said, this is a resolution to allow Fire District 1 to proceed with the issuance of $1.5 million worth of revenue bonds for the acquisition of 5 fire trucks. We've met with the Fire District a couple of times, went over everything. As always, the parameters are probably a little bit bigger than we probably need. They probably actually need around $1 million, $2 million, $3 million. Interest rate will probably be less than 5%, but we're going to try to keep their note around $200,000 to $250,000 a year. So we may go longer or shorter on the end, depending upon how the interest rate comes in. And also, I think they're willing to spend somewhere between $0 and $300,000 of cash on hand to kind of, again, buy down the principal amount to keep the note where they can afford it.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. I believe also that they had said in the meeting that they have budget for that.
Yes, sir.
And to handle the note, that they pretty much have it all figured out. Try to get us some good service in the parish.
Yes, sir.
Randy, I'd like to say
Yes, Mr. Shakes now.
before we vote on it, I want to commend everyone from Fire District 1. They got out and really worked hard to try to, there's a tremendous amount of needs, and it's a very unique situation with all the fire stations and everything, and where the limited amount of money goes. And so, you know, we've really seen a lot of people working very hard to do their due diligence and come forward with what I think is a good plan to help these fire stations move forward and everything. And a lot of thought was put forward and a lot of work was done, so we appreciate everyone involved. So,
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Thank you, Jim.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion? Motion passed.
Okay, item number B is the purchase of Pelican Point Maintenance Building for a fire department substation. You also have a very informative packet in your folder in front of you, Councilman, that describes exactly what this situation is, and the fact that the price and the seller is also doing some renovations for the fire department, and we discussed that at length. We got to discuss.
I got two speakers on this. First one, Ms. Beverly Bowery.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
I'm here to ask you to please support this and approve this project, the purchase of the Pelican Point Maintenance Building for a proposed substation. The station would not only benefit Pelican Point residents and businesses, but it would also benefit the people or the residents of Ascension Trace, River Ridge, Pelican Crossing, and the individual homes that are built on Highway 22 and Highway 44. Most residents in our area are most concerned that an emergency may arise and the railroad crossing on Highway 22 would be blocked by a train and prevent help from arriving on the scene in a timely manner. If this fire station comes to pass, this would eliminate everyone's fears. We hope that you would support this and approve this. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have another speaker, Ms. Mary Kelly.
Good evening. I'm representing the Homeowners Association of the Greens at Pelican Point. Our development is for citizens 55 and older. Our properties are contiguous to the proposed fire station area. I want to speak in favor of it. Our residents are looking forward to the proximity of EMS. Hopefully we don't need it, but with a 55 and plus community, every second counts. We also have small lots. Our homes are very close to one another. So if a fire should erupt, several homes could be in danger because they're so close to one another. We also have townhomes that are attached, and so that same concern would be for those townhomes. So we definitely support the idea of a fire station and EMS services very close to us. And we salute this council for their forward thinking in moving a fire station to where the population shift is along Highway 4422 area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
it is a
Valentine.
unanimous recommendation by the Strategic Planning Committee to accept both of these proposals. So I move that we accept it.
Okay, motion by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Yes, Mr. President.
On the purchase of the maintenance building, anytime you acquire real property, it requires an ordinance. So if you want to use this as the introduction, maybe you want to propose that it be introduced at the next meeting as an introduction, as legal to draw up the ordinance.
So stated.
So stated, we'll separate the fact that 9A that we have passed on and 9B that we request a resolution. Move forward with it. Is that good enough, madam?
What?
Not a resolution, it would be
Introduction of an ordinance. There you go. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I have one
Yes, Mr. Shakespeare.
question.
Oh,
Yeah.
Mr.
Mr.
Lambert.
Valentine, I noticed the gated community back in the greens. Can they attach this to the greens, or is this going to strictly come off of Highway 44?
Actually, that question, Gene, can you answer that question for us?
Yes, access is part of the agreement.
Step up to the mic, Gene, please,
Yeah, step to the mic.
for the people at home, okay?
Yes, we will have two accesses, one through the gate, and eventually from the station, there is a right-of-way that'll go right through where the fence is now. So
Great.
we will actually have two accesses there. So we do not have to go around 44.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes,
I'll take-
Mr. Shakespeare.
I just want to acknowledge people, a couple people were concerned when we were doing this is because in some of the other negotiations for fire stations and buying older buildings, there was kind of an endless fight to try to keep the cost down, and the cost had been overrun. And one of the things about it is that we had negotiated in advance how much the price would be with an updated building that they could go in and put their fire trucks in. Now, they're going to still have some more work to do to completely modernize it, but it'll be fire department ready whenever the purchase comes about. And so that's very important, and I'd like to thank Gene and all the rest of the fire district people with, of course, James LeBlanc, but also Randy Gautreau and Doug Diaz stepped forward and really worked hard to try to make this happen, and it was just a good cooperation from a lot of people to make this happen and keep the cost down.
Yes, this purchase price does include $150,000 of renovations that are going to be done on the building by the developer.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Johnson, Penny Johnson.
Not a question, but just some information. Part of this as well has been a long-standing effort, something that was suggested or recommended through property insurance through one of our ratings at recognizing this area as in need of a station. So this is something that's been going on for a number of years of trying to find a location and acquire the property in order to have a station in there that would help out with the rating once it comes to fruition. So it's a good move on the fire district's part to get something in that area.
And the previous item, purchasing the fire trucks, will allow us to move one of the existing trucks from a station to there. So we will have apparatus for all the stations, including this new one. Any other questions?
Yeah, Gene, just to reflect back on the previous thing with the fire trucks, just for the folks at home, moving forward, path forward right now, when do you expect to see those trucks hitting the
Well, the specs are all developed as soon as the process of getting the bonds sold, and we're ready to go place the order. These will be purchased through the Lamas program, where you can cut out the time of the bid. So that's all been done. Once the finance is in order, we can place the order for those trucks.
Thank you, sir.
So if everything goes smooth, by the end of the summer, we'll have these trucks in place.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Valentine?
Yeah, on the discussions from the parish president's request, I would suggest, Chairman, that we go ahead and vote for the approval of the purchase and then add an item under the introductions of ordinance, 11A maybe, that we use it as an introduction.
I think we did that a while ago. I'd asked that we,
Okay.
11A is,
We need to
is
take
a
a roll
vote.
call so we can add it to the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, on the,
All right.
no, it has to be added.
Madam Secretary, we have a roll call to add item 9B as an introduction of ordinance to the agenda.
Councilman Cullen,
Yes.
Councilman Johnson,
Yes.
Councilman Joseph,
Yes.
Councilman Vincent Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Todd Lambert,
Yes.
Councilman Lord,
Yes.
Councilman Shake Snyder,
Yes.
Councilman Thompson,
Yes.
Councilman Valentine.
Yes.
Thank you. We will move that to agenda item 9C. We have introduction of ordinance for the purchase of Pelican Point Maintenance Building for a fire department substation in Fire District number 1.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Shake Snyder.
Second.
Second by Mr. Valentine. Any discussion? Any opposition? Ordinance moved. Introduced. We'll move on to agenda item number 10, general business, approval of John Lear as hearing officer for Ascension Parish Administrative
This is
Adjudication Court.
been a long, ongoing process to get to where we are today. Basically, we're still not there. We want to introduce some legislation in the upcoming session to make it even stronger. We want to make sure that once we start this court system, that we can go ahead and enforce the codes and ordinances that we do have on the books, and hopefully clean up our parish from junk cars, litter, and things like that, and enforce all of our ordinances. So, Mr. Lear, we've talked to him on several occasions, and we went through several processes, and he's graciously accepted to do the job as the hearing officer.
So moved.
We have a motion by Mr. Thompson.
Second.
Second by Mr. Shake Snyder.
Pick a name.
Wasn't fast enough. Discussion. Mr. Lohr.
Mr. President, what's the soonest that we, depending on, I guess, best case scenario, that he could start hearing some cases for us?
Tony, you want to give us a little scenario on that?
We have the courtroom scheduled out for January due to some internal issues and trainings and stuff like that. Our cases are going to be heard on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. It is supposed to start the first Tuesday in February.
Thank you.
And you're saying that you got 30 or 40 cases on the books right now. Any other discussion?
Just want to make sure that Mr. Lear is going to cancel some of his fishing trips so that he comes. Okay, okay.
I'd just like to thank on behalf of that Councilman Shake Snyder and the administration and everybody that served on the strategic planning and worked hard on that. And I think you guys that's in here for more than one term, you guys have been working this for a couple of terms trying to get it squared up. So hopefully it's all squared up to where when we hit the road, it'll be clean.
Thank you, Tony.
Without any further discussion, any opposition? Mr. Lear is appointed. Move on to agenda item number 11. We're going to introduction of ordinance. Item number 11, introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium-density residential to mixed-use 2, Lot 11, Tanglewood subdivision for Paul and Martha Johnson, located on the north side of LA 621, approximately 200 feet west of L. Landry Road.
I'll make a motion to introduce it, Mr. Chairman.
We have a
Second.
motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to introduce, second by Mr. Benny Johnson. Ordinance is introduced. Next, we'll move into the public hearing ordinances.
Mr. Chairman, before we get into the reading of the ordinance, I need to add something.
Okay.
I'd like to amend the affidavits that you have before you to the Keystone Agreement as Exhibit A.
8?
A.
A.
A is an apple.
Okay, A is an apple. Do we have some explanation for Exhibit A? You can read the ordinance?
We read the ordinance first, and then talk
Yeah.
about this? Or y'all want me
I'd like you to read
to-
this first.
Okay.
Whatever's legal. Whatever's legal.
Let me read the ordinance, and then I'll tell y'all about this, and y'all can decide if you want to or not. This is the development agreement, ZM 10-01-DA for Keystone Flood Ordinance Number ZM 10-01. The purpose is to establish a developer's agreement whereby the developer is bound to all terms by the Parish of Ascension, the Parish of Ascension, hereafter identified as Parish, and Keystone of Galvez LLC, hereafter identified as owner, have come to an agreement to allow construction of a planned unit development with special stipulations that shall run with the land and be of a personal obligation to each party. Whereas the Parish of Ascension has in full force and effort a code of ordinances which...
Madam Falkman, can you get to a microphone? I think it's, I think we understand that the public can't hear you at all.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I can't open the gate.
That's okay.
Whereas Ascension Parish is a local governmental subdivision as defined by Article 6, Section 44 of the Louisiana Constitution of 1974, and whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing and responsible body over the zoning and regulations within this jurisdiction, and whereas the developmental agreement is prepared consistent with authority of Louisiana Revised Statutes 334780.21 subpart and Appendix 6, Section 17-6010B of the Ascension Parish LDC. And whereas Keystone of Galvez LLC, the owner of the Keystone of Galvez development property, has submitted and received an approval with conditions on the concept plan identified as Keystone of Galvez PUD by the Parish Council with conditions on May 6, 2010. And whereas the Keystone of Galvez PUD was processed and approved consistent with Appendix 6 of the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code. Whereas the final development plan was reviewed and approved by the Planning Commission on October 13, 2010. And whereas the parish and owner come to an agreement to permit and regulate a large-scale development identified as Keystone of Galvez PUD, and said agreement's conditions, obligations, and otherwise terms are outlined below. Now therefore be it ordained the following considerations, terms, conditions, and obligations are agreed to, understood, and accepted by the owner. Owner shall construct sidewalks from the PUD limits to common areas as designated on the final development plan. These sidewalks, 4 feet wide concrete, shall be constructed prior to and inspected with the final inspection of that filing. Each sidewalk stretch will be constructed with the adjacent filing as shown on the final development plan. Home builders shall construct 4-foot wide sidewalks with each home prior to CO from side property line to property line adjacent to the front boundary within the appropriate sidewalk easement. The sidewalk shall be placed within the 5 feet wide sidewalk easement adjacent to the 12 feet utility servitude. Homeowners Association documents shall include the necessary language to require that each lot construct sidewalks with the construction of competition of each lot. The sidewalk shall be the property of the Homeowners Association, and the Homeowners Association document shall reflect the necessary maintenance and liability language. The sidewalk shall be constructed meeting the ADA standards. The sidewalk shall be constructed using 3,500 PSI concrete 4 inches thick. The sidewalk shall have expansion joints every 24 feet with control joints every 6 feet. Developer shall place a 3-foot landscape servitude adjacent to the road right-of-way on each plat throughout the development. Street trees shall be installed by the home builders within the 3 feet landscape servitude prior to issuance of a certificate of occupancy by the parish. Each lot shall have at least one street tree within the 3 feet landscape servitude. Street trees shall be planted as close to center of the lot as the driveway will allow. Street trees shall be a minimum of 2.5-inch caliper measured 4 foot 6 inches above the root ball at the time of planting. The tree planting schedule shall adhere to the following: Shumwood Oak, Timberstone Drive, Yellowstone Drive, Baystone Avenue, Pebblestone Avenue, Lakeshore Drive, and Keystone Boulevard. Swamp Red Maple, Hartstone Drive, Quarterstone Avenue, Jadestone Avenue, and Mossystone Drive. Green Ash, Marblestone Avenue, Magic Stone Drive, Tiger's Eye Stone Avenue, and Harborstone Avenue. Walking trails shall be constructed by owner prior to final inspection of the applicable filing as depicted on the final development plan. Walking trails shall be 4 feet wide by 3 inches thick and cut into the existing ground and shall be constructed of aggregate. Recreation Park. Owner shall dedicate tract CH1 on the 6th filing plat in the dedication to the public for use as a park recreational area. Prior to the 7th filing, owner shall donate a sum of $10,000 to the parish to be used towards the construction of a recreational playground on tract CH1 when their total budget so allows it. Owner shall dedicate 2.0 acres of land as identified in Exhibit C to Fire District 1 for the purposes of building a fire station. This shall be done by a quitclaim deed recorded in the clerk of court prior to approval of the final plat of the 4th filing. Owner has completed the following traffic improvements as per the original traffic impact study. An eastbound right turn lane on LA 933 at Keystone Boulevard has been constructed. Stop signs were provided to Ascension Parish Department of Public Works to install at LA 932 and Duval Road when traffic count warrant the improvements. A contribution of $104,625 was paid to Ascension Parish for the road improvements spelled out in the traffic study that is to be used to fund the installation of traffic signal at the intersection of LA 933 and LA 932 when traffic counts warrant the improvements. Signal timing modifications at LA 44 at Causey Road, Merritt Evans has been implemented. A westbound right turn lane on LA 933 and signal timing modifications at LA 933 at LA 44 have been completed. Owner shall permit and construct an eastbound right turn lane on LA 933 at the retail entrance as part of the commercial development permit. Owner shall, before the approval of the final plat of the 7th filing, have an updated traffic impact study completed to analyze the necessity of the following traffic improvements. A westbound left turn lane on LA 933 at Keystone Boulevard, a northbound right turn lane on LA 44 at Causey Road, Merritt Evans Road, signal timing modifications at LA 44 at Causey Road, Merritt Evans Road, a southbound left turn lane on LA 44 at LA 933 Parker Road. The funding for these improvements shall be provided by both the owner and parish. The existing traffic impact study states that this improvement is not only required for traffic generated by this development, but also based on existing traffic demands as a protected left turn phase exists today. The construction cost will be determined according to public bid laws. The cost-sharing percentages for engineering design and construction shall be based on total projected trips using these improvements generated by this development compared to other areas as determined in the future traffic study that will be paid for by the owner. The owner's portion shall be a minimum of $50,000 but shall not to exceed $150,000. Signal timing modification at LA 44 at LA 933 Parker Road. Any traffic improvement required in said study above shall be included and approved with the construction plans of the 8th filing. Owner shall be responsible for maintenance of the common areas until such time a homeowners association is created and legally takes over that responsibility. Owners shall not use the Vall Road for construction traffic to construct subdivision filings. Owner shall ensure that each phase or filing adheres to the approved drainage impact study. And further, the following considerations, terms, conditions, and obligations are agreed to, understood, and accepted by the parish. The recreation park on track CH1 will be constructed and maintained after dedication of the property, receipt of $10,000 from owner, and when the additional funds become available for the recreation department. Variances have been granted to from the current Unified Land Development Code as follows. Section 174040A of the LDC block lengths for the street running north-south adjacent to first filing in the northern portion of the project site. Section 174040B of the LDC pedestrian crosswalk between homes every 750 feet to what deemed appropriate by parish staff, not to exceed one every 750 feet. Lot width, Table B, from minimum 70 feet wide to 50 feet wide, with curb and gutter only in locations identified on the master plan. No lot shall be smaller in width than 50 feet as measured by the code. Section 17602B, any future amendment to the plan shall never contain multifamily dwelling units. Section 17604, the Keystone PUD zoning district shall be limited to 507 lots. Section 174032C, there shall be no vehicle connection with Pine Lake Drive. Parish grants PUD zoning approval contingent with the density, setbacks, heights, land uses, etc. as outlined in the approved master plan ordinance ZM10-01. Parish will participate in cost sharing for the left turn lane on Highway 44 at Parker Road. The construction costs will be determined according to public bid laws. The cost-sharing percentages for engineering, design, and construction shall be based on total projected trips using these improvements generated by this development compared to other areas as determined in the future traffic study that will be paid for by the owner. The parish will pay all costs according to these percentages, but will pay all costs above $150,000 as the owner's portion shall not exceed this. And what Dempsey was referring to earlier is I received an affidavit from the developer's attorney today. It says, before me, the undersigned authority, and in the presence of the undersigned witnesses, personally came and appeared Keystone of Galvez, LLC, a Louisiana limited liability company domiciled in East Baton Rouge, LA, having a permanent mailing address of P.O. Box 8296, Baton Rouge, Louisiana 70898, represented by its member manager, Kevin Nguyen, who, after being duly sworn, deposed as follows. Keystone, as the owner of the Keystone Development property, has submitted and received an approval on the concept plan identified as Keystone of Galvez Plan Union Development by the Ascension Parish Council. An ordinance was introduced to the council for approval of a developer agreement by and between Keystone and the Parish of Ascension that is coming up for a vote of the council on January 6, 2011. Keystone has caused to be submitted in its behalf letters from its counsel, David M. Cohn, dated respectively December 23, 2010, January 5, 2011, and January 6, 2011, that are adopted herein by reference thereto, on the condition that the developer agreement before the council for vote is approved by the council on January 6, 2011, Keystone will make as part of the restrictive covenants imposed on the land compromising the Keystone Plan Unit Development the following three restrictions. 1. Any resident built on any lot shall have a 2-car garage at a minimum. And 2. All residences built on any lot must have at least brick or masonry material on the entire front wall of the residence, except for light fixtures, doors, and windows. 3. No residence can be a manufactured home. Keystone makes the above representations gratuitously and does not do so feeling that this is in some way mandated by the Development Code or by law to do so. And then it says, thus done, read, and signed at Baton Rouge, Louisiana, this 6th day of January 2011 in the presence of the witnesses. And we have Kevin Nguyen's signature, 2 witnesses, and a notary public.
Thank you. All right.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Move to open for public hearing. Mr. Lambert?
Yes, second.
Second by Mr. Cullen. We have some speakers on this item. First, we'll have Lance Mayo. Good evening.
When the homeowners bought into Keystone of Galvez, we bought into a subdivision with restrictions provided by the developer, Kevin Wynn. Restrictions involved minimum square footage of homes and minimum architectural structure. For example, 7 on 12 roof pitch, 1,100 square foot homes, 1,600 brick, 60% brick exterior, 2-car garages. Now that the parish is involved in Keystone of Galvez, we ask the same restrictions be applied to the PUD within Keystone of Galvez. You all have the responsibility to apply the rules within the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 6, stating an improved planned unit development shall be consisted to be a separate zoning district within the development plan as approved, establish the restrictions and regulations according to which development shall occur and may depart from natural procedures, standards, and other requirements of other restrictions of zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations to extend provided therein. We trust that the Parish Council and Planning and Development have a non-bias in determining the restrictions and regulations related to the PUD of Keystone of Galvez. We trust that you have safeguarded our investments as you would safeguard yours. We trust that you can police and enforce restrictions and regulations in the PUD. Again, the PUD allows an addition of 171 lots without a variance of lots for the frontage of 70 foot. It benefits parish through road improvements. I hope that you did not only protect a development, provide the parish with improvements, and support profit of future builders within Keystone of Galvez. I hope you safeguarded our investments also. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Ashley Mayo.
Hi, I'm Ashley Moe. Thank you guys for letting us speak this evening. This has been a whirlwind trip for us, for the residents of Keystone. I hope that after tonight we can look at how PUDs are handled in Ascension Parish, and I hope that we can make the process a bit more transparent and learn from what's happened to us in Keystone. I am with the residents in believing that the parish is going, I'm with the residents in that the parish can add jobs, they can police restrictions. The parish is going to gain a lot from what the developer has to offer, and with what you're going to gain, you're going to save in road improvements in the park. And I believe that if you have to create a job to police restrictions, as we've been asking, then that's something that the parish needs to do to protect our investment and to protect us as your citizens. We have been graciously approached by the developer, by the engineering firm, our councilmen, and other representatives of the parish yesterday in regards to the December 23rd letter that was written in regards to Keystone of Galvez. There were negotiations that were made and concessions that were made. They have been put in an affidavit that Ms. Tony has read, and we do ask that y'all consider that affidavit this evening. But in the same respect, I also urge everyone of Ascension Parish, if a PUD is introduced in your neighborhood, to do your homework and to make sure that you stay on top of these guys. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Mr. Matthew Monson.
How you doing, Councilman? Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Just fine. Okay. On December 16th, many of the residents of Keystone stood before you. We told you our side, how we were interested in protecting our investments, how the PUD was already passed, the concept plan. We knew that we were looking for something. I stood before you and I urged if we could find something to give concessions to us to help protect our investment throughout this process. And that did take place. The developer did meet with us. Our quality engineering representing the developer did meet with us. Councilman from District 5 met with us along with the builder. Concessions were made. We are thankful for those concessions. We ask that the council please pass the affidavit tonight attached to the developer's agreement, and also pass the developer's agreement as well. The residents of Keystone did get together last night and have a meeting, and we discussed this, and we do feel comfortable with what has been presented before us. So we would like to say thank you for those, and also we would like to say thank you. The developer has said that after this process is over, he'd agree to meet with us. So we're thankful for that as well. So this entire process has been long and tiring for us, but we are comfortable with the outcome that has been reached. So we ask that you pass the affidavit and pass the developer's agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Mr. Derek Murphy.
My name is Derek Murphy of Quality Engineering and Surveying, representing the owner, Keystone and Galvez. The process for approval of Keystone Galvez Plan Unit Development began in April 2010 with the submittal of the Plan Unit Development Concept Plan to the Planning Commission. On March 10th, the Planning Commission recommended approval, and on May 6th, this council approved the Plan Unit Development Concept Plan. The Planning Commission approved the final development plan for the developer's agreement and this developer's agreement on October 13th. The developer of this subdivision has adhered to all laws and regulations and has obtained all necessary approvals set forth by the Parish of Ascension to this point. The developer agreement is a fundamental piece to the plan unit development process that helps protect both the developer and the people of Ascension. During the past 10 months, many concessions, stipulations, and agreements have been made between the developer and the parish. This agreement outlines those items and makes them legally binding between the developer and Ascension Parish. This is a unique characteristic to the plan unit development that standard subdivisions do not share. On December 7th, Parish President Tommy Martinez, Councilman District 5, Ricky Compton, and representatives from DSLD, Homes, several homeowners of Keystone and Galvez subdivision, and I met to discuss the developer agreement and the Keystone and Galvez plan unit development. During this meeting, residents expressed concerns about architectural elements of houses both within the existing subdivision and the plan unit development. Representatives from the parish notified the residents that developer agreement pertained to public improvements and not private property. The representatives from DSLD and I assured the residents that the developer would meet with them to discuss their concerns at a later date. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Parish President and Councilman and all those that were involved in that meeting to make this process go as smoothly as it could be. Since that meeting, since that time, the developer has agreed to two concessions, which Tony read. I won't bore y'all with that again. But these concessions address many of the concerns of the residents that attended on the December 7th meeting. As late as yesterday, we had another meeting with Councilman Dempsey Lambert, representatives from DSLD Homes, and several homeowners of Keystone and Galvez subdivision. We met to discuss the developer agreement and the Keystone and Galvez plan unit development in further detail. During this meeting, representatives from DSLD Homes offered to write a letter of intent which stated their minimum building standards on lots they presently own in the subdivision that is outside the PUD, and those lots that they may own in the future. This letter was written and distributed today. The developer also offered his concessions in form of a sworn affidavit as read here tonight. The concessions from the developer and DSLD seems to have satisfied the residents attending the meeting. However, I hope tonight they'll get up and speak, as one of already has. We hope that you approve this agreement tonight, since in my opinion all parties have gone above and beyond the typical requirements of the parish. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Kenny Mayer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's been an interesting past year for me, my neighbors of Timberlake Estates, and residents of Keystone.
I appreciate what the council did for Timberlake Estates in stopping the connectivity, but mostly I want to thank my neighbors who attended meetings and my neighbors and friends who contacted their council members in this issue for their help. After viewing the last council meeting, I felt that I should address the council and the viewing audience. From what I see has happened with Keystone, the Planning and Zoning Subcommittee has a lot of work to do concerning subdivision regulations and restrictions, whatever you want to call it, that have more teeth. We need them. I say this from experience because Timberlake Estates was developed years ago and nothing was done as permitted, as promised by the developer. And residents were told it was a civil matter. But anyway, here we are. Mr. Developer, you got your additional lots, okay? That should help you with your money pinch or whatever, because I've been following this for almost a year now, okay? Although I still have some problems with the April 1st and March 6th council meeting on the way administration, staff, council handled it, but I guess that's water under the Keystone Bridge. Mr. Developer, work out the problems you have with your residents at Keystone, which I think y'all have, and I appreciate that. Maybe if you would have been a little more, maybe if there would have been a little more contact last year with the residents of Keystone, we would not be here today. I think everyone in the council, administration, planning and zoning, staff of planning, and Ascension Parish residents learned a lot this year. I sure did. And if you didn't, you wasn't paying attention. Okay? And remember this, all of y'all sitting in the chairs, when you go knocking on doors next year, you're going to have a lot of questions, and you're going to have a lot of replies that you're probably not going to like. And I thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Tiffany Poche.
Hi. I'd first like to thank you guys for allowing us to speak on this matter tonight. This has been a very long journey for us, as a few people have mentioned. I'd like to take a minute to just kind of summarize the journey in which we've been on. Some of us found out about the PUD in the early stages and didn't want it, but I was one of the ones that didn't know about the PUD in the early stages. So when I did find out about the PUD, and I did voice my concerns, it was too late. So from that time, we had to figure out what was the plan to try to make the best out of this situation. We had a lot of different things being thrown at us. We had a lot of conversations with our council member, number 5, and he has been very helpful in these past few days. We've had meetings with the parish president, Mr. Ricky Compton. In those meetings, the parish has agreed to provide a park when the developer provides the funds, and the developer has agreed to provide the funds as soon as the parish is ready to accept the funds. So that's one of the concessions that isn't in this, but I wanted to bring it to your attention. They've also agreed to put the rumble strips on our roads to help with the traffic and the speed. More recently, we had meetings with the builder, DSLD, Mr. Derrick from Quality Engineering, Council Member number 5, and I don't remember, I'm sure there was other people there. Anyway, the builder did agree to some concessions, and this isn't really a matter for you guys, but I did feel that it was very important for us to bring up tonight because it is a very key point to why we are asking you to agree to this tonight. And those are that he intends to build at least a 1,600 living area and 3-sided brick and stucco house with 2-car garages on the front part. I'm not going to read the lot numbers, but on the front part of the subdivision, that he already owns and that he intends to buy, or that will possibly buy in the future. He intends to build a 1,500 living area, 25% brick and stucco house with a 2-car garage on, there's this little back strip. Again, I'm not going to read you the lot numbers. He intends to build a 2-car garage with 25% brick and stucco with lots on all the lots currently developed. And 1,100 minimum square footage for the back, the very back section, and a 1,300 minimum square footage for the middle section, which is going back to our original restrictions, which we had in our restriction packets when we moved into the subdivision. So we did appreciate that. So at this point, we are wanting to ask you to pass the amendment brought before you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Tim Terrio.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Mr. Chairman, members of the council. I come before you tonight asking y'all to consider a possible change in our process. I've been to several of these meetings in the last few months, and I see very little protection for our residents when it comes to development right now. When the initial development goes to planning and zoning and it gets approved, afterwards they can go ahead and decide they want to make a change with the next phase or something like that. Initially, the residents whose property adjoin the development are notified, and they can go to a public hearing. Once there's changes made, there's no longer anything in there that says that neighboring residents or adjacent property owners are notified once again. And the first time they have knowledge of it, a lot of times is we have to come before the council and express our opposition to it. So I'm asking if y'all would consider either through this commission, through y'all's area, or through the commission, to put something in there where when there's changes made, or we go to a meeting and we see where a development is passed with turn lanes and stuff like that, something to prevent them from going back to the parish afterwards, and all of a sudden we find out that the parish decided, okay, we met with the developer and we're no longer going to require y'all to put a turn lane. And the residents are just left in the dark. I'd appreciate if y'all would consider some type of an ordinance or something in the commission to try to prevent that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Casey Dufour.
Good evening, gentlemen. I live in Old Homestead next to Keystone. You know, I think back to early last year, we sat here and talked about the PUD concept approval, which we were opposed to. We were told by our councilman as whether, in addition to other councilmen, and one of the advantages to the PUD was that it allowed the parish to control what was built inside of that PUD when it came to building materials. They told us without that PUD protection, it would just be a free-for-all. And they were right. Because if you look at the first two filings in there now, they got 7 sets of building restrictions. And I'm happy for the folks over there that they've made some headway in hopefully curbing that moving forward. But you can imagine my surprise when I was told by the folks we've been talking to over there that planning and zoning told them that the parish isn't in the business of building restrictions. So, the section of the PUD code was already read. I'm going to read another little piece, 176012. The applicant shall record development restrictions and other required documents which pertain to a subdivision within the approved final development plan. And you know, we can't have it both ways. I mean, if we're gonna have a PUD, we gotta follow the code. If we're not gonna follow the code, we can't have a PUD. You know, the final agreement, I just find this comical, has extensive language about trees and sidewalks. I mean, Tony read the different types of trees, so we can talk about what kind of trees we plant, but we can't talk about we can't put in there the building restrictions. That's the one thing that protects property values. So, it puzzles me a little bit. I'm happy that the affidavit was done. Personally, I think that should be part of and I know we're gonna make it part of it. I think it should have been there from the beginning. So, you know, I'm asking y'all to pass the agreement, include the building restrictions, to protect us all. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Vicki Anderman. Vicki Anderman.
Hi, my name is Vicki Anderman, and I appreciate the concessions that were made. My son bought a home in Keystone about 4 weeks ago, and I mean, we just, as a mother, he doesn't live here, he lives in Texas, and he wants to come back because he was born and raised in Ascension Parish. And I know that you have to worry about your home values being decreased and all, but my concern is safety. Because when he was a child, he had cancer. He was a St. Jude patient for 12 years, and he worked hard, and in May, he graduated from LSU in mechanical engineering, and he fought for his life. And now, you know, he bought a home, he's getting married, he wants to come back. And I'm really grateful because when I found out about it, you, as a mother, you will always worry about your children from when they're this little to when they're this big. You know, so it was like when I first found out about the first proposal, I was like, there I go, worrying again. You know, but I know this is hard on everybody. I know y'all are good people. Y'all don't want anything bad to happen to people. And I wouldn't want to be on that side for anything in the world. But these people back here, they came, I watched the meetings. It was almost like a lynch mob, and I'm like, wait, these are not bad people. They're just fighting for what they've worked hard for. And it's not just the property values, it's the safety, to be able to have your children be able to go on the sidewalk and play and not worry about crime. Because when he was a patient at St. Jude, he had a high-dose chemo treatment one day, and he got deathly sick at midnight, and I had to run back to St. Jude with him. And he was dying, and somebody tried to carjack us on the interstate in Memphis. And when I got back to the hospital, I said, why would you put a hospital that takes care of sick children amongst all of these mess? It was crime, and it was just rentals and single units, and you know, and I'm not saying that people shouldn't have a right to have a good life, you know, but the worry that sometimes these small units bring crime in your neighborhood. And the lady told me, oh, we were here first. That came after we got here. And it was just, you could see, we're not used to that. We country people. You could see drug deals, you could see prostitution, and it's just, I'm so grateful that we could come to some kind of agreement, because this is a great, great parish, and I'm proud. I'm born and raised here. I'm retired. I was a postmaster in Sorrento for 10 years, and not only that, it taxes the Postal Service with just such an influx, and I hope we can watch it for any others that come into this parish, because the basic thing, the most important thing is our families, and I appreciate anything that can be done.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Greg DePlessis.
Thank y'all. That's a tough speaker to follow right there. That was tough. Can't make a stronger delivery from the heart than what I just heard. And so I hope y'all are listening real close to all this. I've been following this Keystone for quite some time now, and there's a lot of people along with myself. I'm from District 8. There's people from other districts besides District 5 that are real interested, and we're very concerned about the final resolution of what's going to happen with this Keystone. I was privileged to be welcomed to the neighborhood meeting last night in Keystone. And although it was a mad scramble to make it happen, there apparently was a really productive meeting prior to the meeting I attended amongst the developer and the builder and the residents, and I think some parish officials. And I applaud everybody for their efforts in such a tight time frame to come to what I think is a very reasonable, not perfect, I'll say it's not perfect, but it's at least a reasonable resolution that the residents seem happy, and it looks like the developer and the builders are really trying hard to work this out. And that's what we've been asking for and hoping for, because this is going to set a precedence and decide how we're going to handle future developments, because there's more developments to come. And so I'm real pleased and appreciative of all the effort, anybody involved in everything that went on yesterday. What I'm not so pleased with, there's always a little bad, is the timing, because it's my understanding that the letter of concessions has been in existence since at least December 23rd. And I realize we've been through the holidays, but I was not aware that parish government shut down for the entire week. And so it bothers me that an issue as big as Keystone has been for the last 6 months, that so many days went by with this letter being available, and it was only yesterday that real activity started. And so here we are tonight scrambling to get the documentation right to make sure that everything is as discussed and promised and that it's done correctly. So I'm here tonight to tell you, you have a chance to do something really remarkable, and that's get it right this time and do what these people want, because it looks like the developer and the builder are doing their part. So don't miss this opportunity to do it right tonight. Thank you.
Next, we have Ms. Catherine Goffin.
Thank you. I am Catherine Guppelt. Kevin Nguyen, spelled N-G-U-Y-E-N, owner and developer of Keystone of Galvez, including the PUD, being considered for the final approval tonight. An East Baton Rouge company doing business in Ascension Parish. Derek Murphy of Quality Engineering associated with the PUD. And Sean Sullivan of DSLD Builders, the builder of Keystones. We will hear these names in the future. Let the public remember these names. On December 16th, property owners in Keystone informed you the developer would not come to the table. On December 23rd, the letter, which has been referred to from the developer, agreeing to concessions, was not given to the residents until just yesterday. The press had this letter 2 days before. This is unacceptable, unprofessional, and clearly shows that the planning department and the administration have been unwilling to work with residents. When the builder met yesterday with the residents, more of their concerns were addressed, and a written document with all concessions now on the table was promised by noon today. Councilman Dempsey Lambert, you are to be commended for your efforts in negotiating these concessions. However, the document was not delivered to the residents for review. Residents somehow do not believe you really can be trusted to protect the interests of the public. Prove them wrong tonight. In my hand is documentation related to one councilman, his association with Quality Engineering, and a contract this engineering firm now has with Ascension Parish Council. Ethics Code prohibits a public servant from participating in a transaction involving his government entity in which he has a substantial economic interest. If required to vote on a matter in violation of this code, he must recuse himself. He may participate in discussion and debate concerning the matter, provided that he verbally discloses the nature of the conflict or potential conflict prior to the vote being taken. This is not being done, or has not been done in past meetings. This is the law. It should be followed. The public in this council should know why Councilman Shake Snyder must be continually recusing himself. A letter from the developer's attorney makes it clear that concessions now on the table are contingent on the vote tonight. Developers, government, and public should all be part of these proceedings from the beginning. The process is surely flawed, what we've experienced. It's a roller coaster ride for the residents, and it should not be that way. I request that these comments and the documentation attached be placed in the meeting minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to agenda item. I don't think we have any other speakers.
Move to close the...
Move to close by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. We're closed. We now had the, put on the ordinance, development agreement for Keystone PUD.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I move the ordinance with the Exhibit A added to the development agreement.
We have a motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert.
Second.
Second by Mr. Dennis Cullen. Any discussion? Yes, Mr. Valentine.
I do have a question about the agreement. Once, as most of the residents says, Mr. Councilman Lambert did a good job, and great job, in fact, in trying to work out the agreements, and I appreciate that. But number 3 says no residence can be a manufactured home. Mr. Crompton, can you explain that to me? Can you explain what a manufactured home is? Per our code or per the definition, or why is it even here in this agreement?
I didn't write the agreement, so I would assume that they mean manufactured housing, meaning housing that's not stick-built on site.
And that refers to what now? Say again?
Housing that's not stick-built on site, housing that's brought in prefabricated to the property.
Okay. Which does not include mobile homes, right?
I would
It's a mobile
assume
home?
Yes.
a
Okay,
mobile home is
so what
manufactured
you
somewhere
telling
else.
me is
It is
a
in this
manufactured home can be placed in a PUD?
Say that again?
You telling me a manufactured home can be placed in a PUD?
A manufactured home can be placed on any legally created lot in this parish. The PUD is placing a development restriction to not allow that.
Well, I'm asking you though. In other words, what you said, because this councilman didn't know this. That's why I'm admitting my failure to understand what our regulations. In other words, you're saying our subdivision codes and a PUD, if they wanted to put it, unless it's stipulated that you can't put a manufactured home in it, they can do it. Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you that any legally created lot in this parish can have a manufactured house on it, correct?
That's amazing. And how long have you known that? Because I didn't.
I would...
Any of you other councilmen knew that?
Yeah, it's always been that way.
And you can just put, in other words, they could just
Sure.
plot a house in it.
Sure.
Drive around this parish.
Pelican
and-
Point, they got a lot in there, they can just put a mobile home in it.
In where?
Pelican Point.
I would imagine that Pelican Point may have a restriction that prohibits that type of housing.
Only if it has a restriction.
Correct.
Okay, that's my point. But the subdivision before this PUD, so our PUD ordinance doesn't specifically say that. So it's a flaw in the PUD ordinance. Is that what you're
Well,
telling me?
I mean...
I'm asking.
If somebody wanted to build a manufactured housing PUD, you would say no? I mean, it's somebody's right to do that.
Yeah, I'd say no, but that's beside the point.
Well, I would say no as well, but-
But if it's a combination of situations. I just find it odd that it's in the agreement. And I just want an explanation, and I thank you. I'm done. The point I'm trying to make is, I do have mixed emotions, and even though I said that I wasn't going to vote for this PUD, because of the residents and because they want it, and they want the affidavit, and they want the agreement, I'm going to yield to the residents of Keystone. I'm sorry, and I apologize the fact that they had to go through this situation to even get to this point, because it's really ridiculous. Because it appears that the PUD ordinance, along with our subdivision ordinance, doesn't favor the citizens of this parish. It favors only developers. And it's getting more and more relevant as we continue. It gets more and more relevant as we continue to approve PUDs. And I will make this one. This will be the last one that I approve. I will say that this councilman here will not approve another PUD. In fact, I'm going to do my best as a councilman to make sure that we reverse PUDs and just do away with the ordinance of a PUD and tighten up and restrict our subdivision rules and regulations. And I've had some conversations with the planning and zoning guys, and they're still on pace to set up this subcommittee, and hopefully they'll take this issue up quickly and with the spirit of the citizens at heart, and so that this council don't have to go through it, because the only arguments we've been doing in the last couple of years have been over PUDs, and that's ridiculous. And it's only because land has skyrocketed, people have bought property, now the economy is down, and developers can't make a living. And I don't deny a developer living, but it's just like taking a risk. When you take a risk on a piece of property and you pay for it, you're going to have to eat it. You can't come and let this council make sure that you make a profit. And that's what's happening in this case. That's what's happening. So, Mr. Chairman, I do applaud Mr. Lambert for his activities, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad he's able to work this out. But let me warn citizens here and citizens in the future. You guys got an agreement, but the only agreement you got is what's in writing. Anything the builder told you, anything else, you don't have it. I can tell you. So when you doesn't do it, this council's not responsible. That's what I'm voting on. I'm voting on this agreement. Unless it's in writing to where we vote on it and putting it in the ordinance, you don't have a guarantee with it at all. Thank you, Chairman.
Are you finished, sir?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. Shake Snyder.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of things. I'll answer the lady that inquired about me participating in discussions and my disclosure. Every time I have discussed, I have disclosed my participation with quality engineering. I do work out of the parish on elevation jobs to get people out of the floodplain, and they do the design for the foundation so people can have their houses lifted. And all the work is done out of the parish, and quite frankly, it's fairly small contracts comparatively. But that's been going on for a couple of years. Nothing to hide with that, and I haven't done any work in the parish with anyone. So we'll continue to do that, quite simply because they've been producing. So I have no problem. One of the things that please don't forget, we're here right now because we've been having a problem for years and years and years with our subdivision regulations and enforcing them. Because this parish council has no power to enforce something if the developers change. As this past year I saw in my district in River Ridge, when people bought into the subdivision at a certain price, they spent their hard-earned money, they built their house of their dreams, and then in midstream, the developer, who was also the review group, decided to change the rules of the subdivision and built houses that were $50,000 to $100,000 cheaper than them and put them next to each other. And they devalued the people's property. In our subdivisions, by law, we have no power to do that. The only thing we could tell them was that it's a civil matter. And each of these individual peoples were individuals having to fight. And that has happened over and over and over and over again. It happened in Keystone, from one section to the next. As you saw the quality going on down, it was brought about many, many, many times. That was the thought behind trying to put the next step in where we could back the parish government, standing behind the people that bought into a subdivision and give them something that they didn't have to hire their own lawyer to do. That was the reason behind us establishing the PUD ordinance, to give you that development agreement that would protect you, just as you said tonight. Now, there's some problems in it. There's some problems in us implementing, but until we went through the process, of which we really have now, I studied it as much as possible. But I want to tell you, you couldn't predict everything that was going to happen. And you might have, the 100,000 fans from Wisconsin wish they'd have run the ball on the two-point conversion over there after it's over. Well, it was implemented, recommended by the Planning and Zoning Commission, passed by the parish in order to try to protect the people of Ascension Parish. And we got some flaws in it, and we're finding out the flaws, and we're going to try to correct all of that. But be careful about going back to something, because when you start putting subdivision regulations, and we need to increase that. I agree with you. And we've asked Ricky to send us some stuff, and he is sending us some stuff as quickly as possible to try to increase that. But remember, this goes all the way across the parish to everybody. And so we're going to increase it as much as we can, as much as the people of Ascension Parish will get behind it. But it still will allow the developer the discretion to change things as the architectural requirements are. It will be a civil matter. And that's one of the reasons why we went forward and been working years to get the parish court in there, so people don't have to put their hard-earned money to enforce our regulations. So the intent is to try to help you guys have some protection when you do buy into a subdivision, that you have a covenant that's there, that's backed by the parish government, that people have to continue to build what they say they're going to build. Now, obviously, after going through this process, we don't want to be dealing with this process now. It should be done the first time it comes to the parish council when we negotiate with them. And it should be a number of meetings with the residences. Please be acceptable to have meetings with developers and council members and everything. You'd be surprised what you can get. I've yet to see council members not willing to attend meetings and work with the people. So, yes, it's a good lesson in the past year. And as Kenny said, if you hadn't learned nothing, you hadn't been listening. But let's get together and work and make it right, and try to do something that's going to actually protect the people of Ascension Parish. Let's take away the flaws that we have and fix it and move on and go from there. There may be a place in this parish for PUDs, there may not, depending upon what happens with subdivision regulations. But if we don't get our subdivision regulations where they are super tight, then the PUD is the only thing that can protect the people with the covenant. And let's do away with the bad parts of them and keep the good parts. So I'm willing to work with anybody and work and make things better. Just please don't have the attitude, just know about everything. Let's sit down and find out what's good, keep them there, how we can make things better, and what's bad and get rid of it. So I urge you to do that. We're going to be doing, due to my health, I can't meet a whole lot. But Ricky has given me some 3 no-brainers that people have talked about incessantly at the meetings, and that we want to go forward with. We'll try to present that in the next strategic planning meeting, get things out, and then we're going to have a few more hearings and try to get as much of this, these regulations changed to protect the people as possible. So the council has been listening all this time, and it doesn't happen overnight. So hopefully we can get things done and move forward in a positive manner. I agree with Mr. Valentine. It's unacceptable with the way it is now. So, thank you.
Madam Attorney, within Councilman Shakespeare's statements, be known that you agree that he offered up explanation and recused himself from the vote on this agenda item. Anybody else? Any other speakers? Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, I am also thankful for what's going on at Keystone right now. It's been a learning experience also for this administration. PUD ordinance has been in existence since 2005. I think this is the first time it's pretty much come to light. I think we all have a greater understanding of it now. We understand. I don't understand why the development code and the ordinance were put as separate items. That's one thing. The other thing is that no matter what you do, and Mr. Valentine, as far as any lot can be, a trailer can be put on it. You know, we got people in Ascension Parish that can't afford $300,000 houses, $200,000 houses. And some of us have kids that have put trailers by our houses and things like that. But again, we want to grow, and we certainly, I don't know how rumors get out about Section 8 housing and low-income housing. I don't think anybody in this administration or this council looked at that. We do have Section 8 housing in Ascension Parish. It's been here since 1981, okay? As far as any low-income housing projects on the horizon, I don't see any of that in the future of Ascension Parish. The price of lots are so high, they cost so much. If you want to buy a lot for $50,000 and you want to put a trail on it, most of the time it's a temporary deal, and then you build your house there. But, I mean, we are still growing. We have things to learn. I've looked at this PUD situation more and more now. I've looked at the ordinance. It's a give and take type thing. Okay, you may give up putting more lots in a subdivision, but you end up with more green space, you end up with sidewalks, you end up with parks, you end up with other concessions. Is that the way we want to go? I don't know. That's as a body and as a group, that's what we all need to sit here, we need to decide. We got a lot of work to do in looking at these subdivision ordinances. I think a couple of years ago there was a group that was put together to look at subdivision ordinances and look at the rules. I think we're going to revisit that and see exactly what came out of that, and maybe we can bring that forward and be a starting point. If we don't want any more PUDs in Ascension Parish, so be it. If that's the way it needs to be, let's work on it. Let's do something about it. Let's not just sit up here and complain and say we got this one or that. So, I mean, I want to work with you. You guys want to do the same thing. I don't think anybody had any bad thoughts on what was trying to happen here and to try and hurt the people in Keystone. This is kind of an unusual situation. You had a subdivision, now you put a PUD within an existing subdivision, and I don't think that's the way the situation was supposed to work in the first place. If you had a self-standing PUD that would have worked out before there were any existing houses, I think it would have been a lot better situation. But so be it. If PUDs are not the way we want to grow, that's okay. Okay? If we want to go back to traditional neighborhoods with larger lots, well, let's do it. Let's look at how we can change the law. I mean, we have to enforce what's on the books now. As an administration, if that's the law, we have to go in, we have to do what we have to do. If not, we got a problem. So, again, I think if we all put our heads together, if we all work together as a team, I think that we can come up with something that will work for the parish, something that's maybe better than PUDs, better than SPUDs, better than TNDs, or whatever you want to call them. We just need to work as a group. And I think that everybody here has good intentions, and I think they all want to do the right thing. And I applaud you for, hopefully tonight, for passing this.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion by any council members? Any opposition? We have recusal by Councilman Shake Snyder. Other than that, we have no opposition. Do we need a roll call with a recusal? I don't think so. Passes. The ordinance passes.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to take this moment to thank the advisory committee for Keystone and the surrounding subdivisions and the parish president and the administration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. We'll move on to agenda item number 15. We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to adjourn. We have a second by Mr. Dennis Cullen. Any opposition? Motion passes.